Rescuers in New Zealand have pulled survivors out of rubble after the country was hit by an earthquake. But it's not all good news. The death toll has risen to 75 and many dozens remain trapped inside collapsed buildings.
The third tragedy to strike Christchurch in nearly as many months has the South Island of New Zealand reeling. The BBC describes the impact of the 6.3 magnitude earthquake in the words of those who experienced it. Eyewitnesses have referred to the streets liquefying and the horror of being surrounded by collapsing buildings. The spire of the city's iconic cathedral fell into the main square. Many are calling it New Zealand's darkest hour. To put the events in context, The Economist notes you have to look at the past several months. First came the earthquake that struck Christchurch last September. Despite extensive damage, no deaths resulted. There were no such miracles left in November when an explosion at an underground coal mine across the southern Alps from Christchurch killed 29 men. On February 22nd, Christchurch's luck ran out. As rescue teams from around the world rush in to help, the toll of the disaster is still setting in. Euronews reports 300 people are still missing, and getting to them won't be easy.
But hopes of finding survivors in another collapsed building are fast disappearing. At this language school, 10 Japanese students are among those still unaccounted for. Elsewhere, police say they're getting text messages and tapping sounds from people who are buried. Rescue specialists from abroad are on their way. The next few hours will be crucial.
The Sydney Morning Herald notes, while earthquakes are nothing new for the island nation, this quake stands apart in New Zealand's history. Records show that New Zealanders are likely to experience several magnitude 6 earthquakes each year. Tragically, the 6.3 earthquake that struck Christchurch yesterday was close to a city of almost 400,000 people and at a relatively shallow depth of 5 kilometers. Accordingly, this latest earthquake will likely rate among the worst, if not the worst, New Zealand has experienced. Even as the rescue goes on, the devastation of Christchurch's infrastructure makes eventual recovery an arduous process. A blogger for New Zealand Stuff compares the impact of this tragedy on Kiwis to another notable world event. Journalists toss words like tragedy around freely, but as the reality of what had struck the city became clear in the hours after the quake, it felt comparable to only one thing: watching the endless replay of the footage of the Twin Towers falling in 2001. I'm Jim Flink for Newsy.com. Multiple sources, the real story.